chance to talk to an experienced astrologer, actually, I don't pronounce so well, a kind of pressure inevitably arises on the one who is trying to ask the right questions. So I am aware that we only have probably 50 minutes or who knows, and I want it to be used wisely. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, especially because you accepted this meeting, and I'm completely honored to see you online and to have the chance to put these questions to you. Thank you.
It's not a problem. I like to support as many different astrologers as I can, and my only purpose really is to get astrology out into the world, even if it is a Mercury retrograde.
We had some problems, but this is our secret. We will not tell to no one. Please tell to my audience and to me, how did you meet astrology? How it was the meeting with astrology?
There are two particular times in my life where astrology found me and gave me the opportunity to work with her. First was when I left the army when I was 20. I was in the army. I joined the army when I was 15. I left the army when I was 20. When I was in the army, they quickly worked out that I wasn't very good at shooting people or driving tanks. So they ran a lot of intelligence tests on me and found out that I was really good at working with different types of alphabet and different types of codes, especially symbols. I came out of the army in 1975, and in 1976, 77, I found my first ephemeris, and I looked at the symbols and I looked at the numbers going down in the columns, and I thought, wait a minute, there's patterns in there. And then I just thought, okay, that's interesting, and put it down. 3 years later, I'm living in the West Indies, in the Caribbean, with the mother of my daughter, and she said to me, you need to read this book. It's really important, and it's on astrology. And I went, okay. And I read it, and it was all about the North Node. And this is in 1979, 1980, maybe early 1980. And I read it, and I thought, how does this old man who lives in New York, who's never met me before, know so much about me? And how does he do this? And can I do this? I thought, well, let's investigate it. And then I worked out how he did it. And then I thought, well, I can do this. And that's how it started. So over the 2 years, I started doing people's charts just for free. I got them all wrong for the first 9 months because I didn't know about time changes, time zones. And then I just started building up people's charts, and then people started offering me money or food for doing a reading, and that's how it started. And thing is, in those days there were no computers, no laptops, no mobiles, no apps. You had to do it all by hand.
You have some kind of skills for doing this, easily handling these codes and patterns. My natural question, I would like to ask you if is necessary to have a certain structure to be able to learn and practice astrology? Do you think everyone can do this, or how?
No, I don't think there is. I cannot think of one common denominator that links all astrologers. Because I'm so immersed in astrology, I cannot think outside of the charts, but I've seen astrologers with so many different types of charts, so many different types of patterns. But, so no, there is no one thing that says, okay, this person will be an astrologer, that person will not be. But the thing is, Patricia, in the last few years, I've made a really big breakthrough with astrology. I've stopped seeing astrology as an it. I now see it as she. It has life. It is alive. It is a real force for change in the world. And astrology chooses who it wants to work with. So people don't find astrology. Astrology finds people.
I completely agree, and I know you know what you are saying because you've seen my chart, and I'm not crazy when I say I'm totally agree, and I feel exactly what you just described. But now, of course, I have some technical questions prepared, and I'm completely under pressure because I know you don't have time and you are super busy. And okay, so what kind of astrology do you practice, and what house system do you use? I'm very, very curious about.
Okay, what type of astrology do I practice? I've got no idea. I made it up. I developed my own skills, my own techniques. I'm totally self-taught. I did not learn it from anyone or anywhere else. I learned it from a number of different books, and then I just did hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of charts and learnt by direct experience, and that is easily the best way to do it. And the house system I use is a rare one. I use Porphyry house system. It is the only house system that you do not need tables for, and it's very simple to explain.
Can you do it? Because this is a big curiosity of mine. I never used that. I don't know how to use it, and what's the difference?
The ascendant is always the start of the first house. Descendant is always the start of the seventh house. Out of the 38, 39 house systems, all but one have the midheaven as the start of the 10th house and the nadir as the start of the 4th house. The only one that doesn't is equal house system, and I really don't like that. So you have, in 38 of the 39 different house systems, you have the start of houses 1, 4, 7, 10. Got 4 quadrants. Trisect them. Split them into 3. You can do that in your mind. 3 equal houses in each quarter. So that quarter reflects that quarter reflects that quarter. And you can do it in your head. You don't need tables. And it was invented by a 4th century monk called Porphyry in Rome.
Mm-hmm. Is it available, this house system, wherever you are born? If you are born in the north of Norwegian or in the South Pole, is it available? Can you use?
It works. The only places it doesn't work is north of the Arctic Circle or south of the Antarctic Circle. And no house system works there because there is where the sun doesn't set, or where it's either up all the time or down all the time. And they're the only house system that works north of the Arctic Circle or south of the Antarctic Circle is equal house. But the only place it does work.
Yes, I find very difficult when you start to play with all different these house systems, because I used to learn on Placidus, and now I am studying with equal, and sometimes I find myself in that system, sometimes not. When I think in the past and I try to remember what happened between, let's say, 15, 25 years old, yes, some things they are like in the equal house system, but it's very difficult. I'm still fighting with this.
My students is to say, look, experiment with the different houses. Regiomantic, topocentric, Cock, Placidus, Porphyry, you name them. Experiment with them all. Do your chart in all the different house systems and see which one works for you. That's the best way.
Another question which I have for you is, I often hear in the sentences this expression, / in between houses and signs. For example, first house / Aries, or the second house / Taurus, etc. How do we relate to this / between houses and signs? Can you give us some examples? Because it's another big mystery here. And
this is it. This is an easy one for me because I've just been teaching all my students this. I'm a great believer in keeping things simple. Okay, because astrology is far too complicated. And a lot of people like to make it a mystery and think it's secretive because it's good for their ego. It's not. It's simple. Planets are energies. The sign of the zodiac that the planet is in at the time of your birth shows how that energy works in and through you. It is the way you behave. The house of the zodiac that the planet is in at the time of your birth shows how you are seen as behaving by the outside world. It's not the way you are, it's the way you're seen as being. And the aspects between planets show how different energies help and hinder each other. But the signs show how you are, the houses show how you're seen as being.
And for someone like my chart is in Placidus, with the cusp who is falling on the Pisces, and then it's continuing with Aries and it's intercepted, and then it's continuing with Taurus energy. So technically I have 3 types of different energies located into the 12th house. And for me, and it's full of planets and asteroids if I put them too. And it's very difficult already, even if that house would be empty, to understand how that energies are working there. And I was just curious how, if you can give an example, not necessarily my chart, I was just giving an example because it's easy, it's coming.
Of course, I always look at the house to see how many planets are in it. But if there's no planets in a house, then I look at what sign is the cusp of the house in, and what planet rules that sign. So if you have an unaspected house, an intercepted house, say, or a house with no planets in that starts in Taurus, say you have the 3rd house in beginning in Taurus, and it's empty, then you look at Venus, because Venus rules Taurus, to look at the affairs of the 3rd house. Again, I keep it simple. Simple.
The best. What about the retrograde planets? How would you describe such a person with a lot of retrograde stories in the birth chart?
I've developed this idea, this 2 things with retrogrades. The more retrogrades there are in a birth chart, the more the individual is on planet Earth to learn through their lessons through direct internal experience rather than external experience. It's very rare you see a birth chart with no retrogrades. Sometimes you see a chart with 5 or 6 or even 7 retrogrades, and they're the people who they learn internally. They see the experience and they step back and they think about it and they learn it. So, but also, when a planet is retrograde, not so much in the chart, but by transit. When you have, for example, Uranus, Neptune or Pluto going through the sky and it is retrograde for 5 or 6 months of a year, the first time it moves forward, you get the experience, the events. It moves backwards. Then you get the time to reassess, reevaluate, reconsider. Did I get it right? The 3rd time it moves forwards again, you practice it again, you get it right this time. Or another way of seeing this is the first time you get the dream, the vision, the idea. It moves backwards. The dream, vision and idea change into blueprint, schedule and plan. It moves forwards. The plans turn into actions.
So technically from the 2nd move going to the 3rd move, you start to understand better what is going on with that energy and how to go in the direction.
Right, that's when you get internal understanding of what's going on. And then it moves forward again and you get a chance to make it better or get it right.
Thank you. A subject that often awakens the imagination of astrology enthusiasts is that of fate and the famous free will, of course. How do you see this topic from the perspective of astrology? Do we really have access to free will in our destiny? And can we really change our destiny or the events we are somehow planning to go through?
Well, is there such a thing as destiny? I don't believe in death. I just believe in transition of consciousness. So if we're permanently alive forever, as souls, we never die. So there is no thing as fate or destiny. But in the charts, it's easy to see because people were born with everything on the left-hand side are more tuned into free will, choice, self-determination. People born with everything on the right-hand side of the chart are more born around principles around fate, destiny and predetermination. These are the people born between midday and midnight in the second half of the day. First half of the day, midnight to midday, they're the free will people. And another example, let's look at the planet Uranus. When Uranus comes up by transit, it hits something in your chart. And I say to all my clients, right, there is going to be change. There is nothing you can do about this. Change is going to happen, guaranteed. But the way you deal with it is up to you. So there's nothing cast in stone. You have the choice of how you manage it. It's going to happen, but it's up to you whether you get trashed, turned inside out, upside down, back to front, or whether you dance with it and turn it into a flowing experience that works with, where you work with it and it flows positively. So here we do have, the end result is always the same. There's going to be change, but the way you do it is up to you. So yes, we're born for a purpose. The chart shows that purpose. And most of us succeed in that purpose. The way we get there is up to us. When I look for purpose in a chart, I define purpose along with words like purpose, mission statement, and reason why you volunteered to come to planet Earth in the first place, why you chose to be born here at this time. Here I look at the North Node.
Yes, that was another question prepared here, but I was not sure if I can. I don't want to put so fast all the questions because I like a lot to hear. And so can I say that the transits are giving you a kind of free will on the way how you put yourself in the moment?
Very much so.
You can access more quantity from the free will, depends how, yeah. I don't know.
Yes, but my horoscope is all completely on the left. So I am completely in tune with free will. I don't believe in fate and destiny. If I was born 12 hours later than I was, everything would be on the right. And maybe I'd be much more in tune with fate and destiny. But I don't know. I'm on the inside looking out. I cannot be objective about that.
Because the next question, it was somehow related with the same one. Do you think that destiny and free will are somehow related to the lunar nodes? Many astrologers link these aspects together. And I wonder, what do you think about it?
The nodes came to Western astrology in the 1890s, 1900s through Madame Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society. And she brought them from Hindu astrology from India. And she brought with them this notion of karma and reincarnation. But that comes from a culture where 5% of people own everything and everyone else lives in the fields with just their begging bowl. And the only hope of a good life they have is if they suffer this lifetime, they'll do better next life. I live in a Western culture where I can't be bothered about past lives or future life. I'm too busy living this life. So to me, and as I say, I don't do death. So reincarnation is just a kind of religious structure that's imposed upon us by old men in skirts who want to scare us about heaven and hell. Instead, I do mission statement, purpose, and reason why we volunteered to come to planet Earth. And that is what the North Node shows us, the Moon's Node shows us, I believe.
This is wonderful how you clarify and how you explain, and I love it, and I was absolutely sure it will be a wonderful meeting, and it is already for me. I hope for you too, even if I jump from a subject to another, because there are more and more astrologers who support the idea of teaching astrology in schools in the future, and you are one of them. At what age do you think this could be done, or there is no age limit? And I ask this especially to clarify these concepts about karma, reincarnation, and exactly what you were just describing. I think when a young teenager or a child, let's say, have the chance to hear this in the school, it's a completely another perspective than later in life.
Yeah, I have students who are 19, 20 years old. I have students who are 75 years old. You know, it doesn't matter how old you are. When astrology finds you, you either answer the call or you say no thanks. It doesn't matter about the age. You know, yeah. Of course, as you age, you've got more maturity, more understanding of the way the world works. So the older you are, the more experience you have, the more knowledge and wisdom you have. But I didn't start studying astrology properly until I was 24, 25. I've got so many students who are 18, 19, and they're going to be amazing people by the time they're 60. I'm 67 now. No, I'm not. I'm 66. I'm older. I keep forgetting how old I am, you know. Yeah, it doesn't matter what age you are.
Doesn't matter. The same, I believe. But why I was asking about the school? Why? Because in ancient times, there were all kinds of temples and initiation schools where the chosen ones had access. Do you think that today we can still talk about such levels in accessing advanced astrology? Are there such places today, or I'm on a dreamland now with this question? How?
I have to be careful what I say here because I don't want to upset some of the very respected teachers of astrology, some of whom are good friends of mine. But in my opinion, the best way to learn astrology is always to teach yourself and to do as many different horoscopes as possible, because the more you do charts, the more you learn. But if you want to be taught astrology, there are one or two good schools in the world which are the best at teaching astrology. In England and in Europe, it is particularly the Faculty for Astrological Studies. They are the best. It's very dry and it's long, takes 3 years, but they teach you everything. They're not very good with humour and they don't have a passion and a love, but they're very good at teaching you the basics, and they are the best teachers of astrology in the world. So yeah, I'm fine about schools, but once you get into this idea of, oh, we have the knowledge, we are the chosen ones, that's when I want to reach for the custard pie and just sort of custard pie them, because that's just so arrogant and conceited.
Yes, I was just curious if some of secret places are accessing, not secret places, I can't say that. In my mind, it was that idea of probably there are some circles today somewhere where you can learn a different type of astrology. And I'm very curious if they exist.
Okay, look. I'm a member of an online group called the Journal for the Academic Study of Magic, where magic is studied. We don't practice it, we study those who do. And this magic is a word that can be mixed in many different circles. To many people, astrology is a lower form of magic, because a good astrologer, just by looking at the patterns of the planets at the moment of birth, can work out exactly what it is that makes a person behave the way they do, and they cannot make predictions about what they will do, but they can be very good at working out timings and areas of events, and then what the individuals do with that is up to them. So to many people, to the uneducated, it appears to be almost magical. And then, of course, they say, oh, you're so good, you're so good. Will you tell me how to live my life? At which point I run away.
I understand completely. Is it not dangerous, this type of info, for a large number of people? Is it? There is a selection behind, I guess.
When I was young, before computers, I always said to all my friends, and in the articles I was writing, on my gravestone, when I die, I wanted the words, he wanted astrology to be taught in schools. Because I thought if astrology is taught in schools, within 2 years, within 2 generations, we will see an end to racism, warfare, and gender inequality. Everyone will know each other on an equal level. Now, of course, we have the internet.
Yes.
And now I find myself accidentally teaching the world astrology, and it's great. I'm living the dream.
Yes, but you are doing a great job because not everyone is full of charisma and with that sense of humor and that subtle way of talking about astrology. And this is not for everyone. So
Yeah, but I don't want to get egotistic about it. This is just me. This is who I am. I'm just a normal guy, you know. I eat, I fart, I do normal things that everyone else does, and I just happen to study astrology, and I've been doing it all my life. And for most of my life of doing astrology, I've been really poor. I was in debt. I owed money for 35, 40 years. Now I'm debt-free for the very first time in my life. Now I'm finally starting to make money just as I'm getting old. And I'm thinking, well, would I recommend anyone else to do this? No, I wouldn't. I would, if someone says to me, I want to do astrology, I want to be a practicing astrologer, I'd say you're stupid. Don't do it.
oh my God. Okay.
If you really want to do it, then this is the way to do it. Yeah.
This is the way, absolutely. Yeah. I understand totally. I know you have a lot of secrets in the pocket, and I would like to make some recommendation for books which we should read when we decide still to go forward on this fantastic knowledge, I would say, because it's not a science. Because science for me, it's something with borders, and astrology, it's infinite. So maybe you can make us some recommendations, some books.
I do have a list of 4 books that have changed my life. And one of them is astrology. With the astrology, when I did the MA in cultural astronomy and astrology 20 years ago, I was in the first intake, and one of the very first people to do it with me was a woman called Sue Fairbrother, Fare Brother. And she's recently written a book called Astrology Decoded. It is the best teach-yourself astrology book on the market, and I've recommended it to all of my clients and all of my friends, and she must owe me about 100 beers by now, because I've sold thousands of her books for her.
So we can still find this book. We can order.
Yes, you can get it as a paperback or as a download from Amazon. It's called Astrology Decoded. And if you're listening, Sue, you owe me 1,000 beers. And I also recommend a friend of mine who lives in Glastonbury, a woman called Serena Roney Dougal. She is the first person in the world to get a PhD in parapsychology, and she changed her thesis into a book called Where Science and Magic Meet. It's absolutely critical book. And the other 2 books are novels. Well, they're not novels. They were written as novels, but they're a lot deeper. One was written in the 60s. It's by a woman called Doris Lessing. It's called Shikasta. And the other is by Richard Bach, the follow-up to Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It's called Illusions. These are the books that have changed my life and shaped my life. Oh, wonderful. And every book by Terry Pratchett. If you don't know who he is, look him up.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm absolutely sure we will start to dig for these titles, at least my community for sure. Many birth charts are, and real people have passed through your hands. You have some conclusions about a lot of aspects which we don't know yet. We just went through the eclipse season. And what do you think about people born during eclipses? Basically, they have either the moon or the sun at the lunar nodes. Are them different? Are they... How would you describe them?
Yeah, it's a weird one. If you're born on an eclipse, then you're born on the new moon or the full moon. And not all full moon people or new moon people are born on an eclipse, but all eclipse people are born on a new moon or full moon. And it seems to me that people born on an eclipse, they're here to either start a whole new thread, a whole new pattern, or to bring to an end a long-term old pattern. Yeah, eclipses are weird. People born on eclipses are different. They're not better or worse, they're different. But the same can be said about the void moon. When you know, the moon is void 16% of the time. So you would think that 15 to 16% of people would be born on the void moon. 2% of people are born on a void moon. So you think about that, this gives another idea that maybe souls choose to be born at a certain time. So these are things that we can never understand. We can know, sense, feel, guess, intuit, dream, but there is no logic. If I try and make logic out of astrology, all the academics, all the scientists, all the astronomers, all the priests are going to go, "You're stupid." And I'll go,
No,
"Yeah, okay."
I'm not agree. No, it's difficult to explain, but I would be curious how it's the destiny of such a person. Okay, not destiny, it's a big word. How the life it's going developed for such a person born on such a moment. I would be quite curious. I don't know no one around me with this. Okay, I don't know too many charts, but
I've got a few born on eclipses, and they're all stranger in a strange land. It's like they're all alone. They're not lonely, but they feel alone.
yes. How would you describe the famous return of the lunar nodes? But personally, I would be curious about the interpretation of half nodal return. I find this much more difficult to realize and go through. What piece of advice would you give us regarding this topic?
With any type of return, you have the solar return every year, the lunar return every month, Mercury and Venus return every year, Mars return every 2 years, Jupiter return every 12 years, Saturn return every 29 years, Uranus return every 84 years. Remember, the node is a mathematically worked out point. It is not a body in space. You cannot see it. There is nothing solid there. So I don't think the node return is that important. I find it difficult to measure the node by transit. By watching the position of the node in the ephemeris or on the computer screen move over someone's sun or moon or ascendant, I think, well, nothing's happening. So I don't actually see that as that important. Also, things like Chiron. The Chiron return at 51 years old. Chiron by transit doesn't seem to work. Or if it does, I'm not seeing it. But Chiron by birth chart is absolutely critical. So important.
I moved in Ulm under the Chiron line. So it's suddenly activated. And for all my friends, I became a freak, if I can say like this, because I attract people with similar problems. I can help them. I cannot help myself. This is another very strange behavior. And I was just describing my Chiron from my birth chart. Yes.
But isn't that Chiron's lesson that the only way you can heal yourself is by healing others? Or not healing others, by helping others heal themselves?
Trying, because I don't know if I have succeeded or not. This is another question.
Chiron, you're not being asked to be successful. You're being asked to do your best. The only person who can tell you what your best is you. You are judge, jury, and executioner. So as long as you're doing your best, what's not to like?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How would you advise people who have major transits of heavy planets over personal planets? Major transits of heavy planets over personal planets. If you can give an example, better.
Ask any Aquarian, Piscean, or Aries who's over 25, 30. What was it like when Uranus passed on your sun? And they're going to go, oh my God, it's crazy. Or any Capricorn or Sagittarius in the last 30 years who's had Pluto conjunct their sun. And the big planet transits, not Saturn, but Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they take a year. So it's forward, backward, forward. And it's life-changing. It's always life-changing, every single time. But the way you deal with it is negotiable. So yes, you can be the victim. Oh my God, I'm really getting hit. I'm really tired. I'm exhausted. I've got crises and trauma. I'm all alone. I'm unsupported. Nobody loves me. Poor me. Or you can go, right, Pluto's on my sun. Right, time for transformation. Time to regenerate. Time to rebirth myself. Time to go into my own psychology. Astrology is a tool for self-empowerment. It gives you the tools and the skills to be able to navigate your way through life in a way that makes you far more effective, efficient, and focused. Not necessarily successful in terms of money or fame or fast cars, but more successful in terms of being a good human being, being proud of yourself, having authenticity, dignity, and it makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel fulfilled. It makes you a happy person. What's not to like, you know?
Absolutely. Can we be good astrologers without necessarily applying a spiritual practice? How do you see this?
Astrology at the end,
Constantly.
it's just a tool. It's not just. It is a tool. Once you've been doing it 40 years or more, as I have, sometimes you can just look at people and go, that's the issue. You just look. It's almost like you can see through them, and you look at them and you go, okay, they've got psychological problems in this area, or they've got health problems in that area, and then you look at the chart and think, oh yeah, there it is. But so astrology is a way of describing something that's already there. You know, you can, and as you get more experienced, you can sense it and see it. A mixture of age, knowledge, and experience. Yes. There is a bonus to getting old. You know, I want to play football for England, but I'm good at what I do.
There are astrologers who are doing shamanism, or they are practicing yoga or meditation or qigong, and they describe that astrology works better if you combine this style of life with doing astrology too. So I don't know what to say about. Is it possible to function without?
If that works for them and it works for their clients, I'm very happy for them. There is no one set way to do astrology. Everyone is different. I would not recommend anyone to do astrology the way I do it. I'd say learn from your astrological friends and then make up your own way of doing it. Astrology will work with you. She will help you develop your own skills and talents. So yeah, as I'm fond of saying to everyone on YouTube, one planet, 8 billion different worlds. You know, we all see things differently. We all experience things differently. So our ways of working are all different. But as long as we're guided by an inner drive to be as good as we can and to have a clean conscience, then that's going to eventually create a better planet.
I hope too. At least that's what I'm talking with my daughter, not in every day, but as often as I can. But she's too young to understand this, so I still need to wait some years. What do you recommend to those who are now starting to study and practice astrology? What kind of mistakes to avoid? What to not do?
Never make the mistake of thinking you know it all. The more you know, the more you think you know, the less you know. I know less now than I started 40 years ago. 40 years ago, I knew through my books that if Mars was moving over my sun, I was going to get a lot of energy. These days, it's like, okay, Mars is on my sun, right. Do I be careful? How can I use this? There's so many different possibilities. Never make the mistake of thinking you know it all, because you don't. And always listen to Saturn. Because Saturn is my best friend. I don't have heroes. I was 20 when the punk rock started. So I was too old to be a punk, but I was too young to be a hippie. But I was still a punk in the mid-1970s. And I come from that generation. We don't have heroes. No more heroes. But Saturn is my guide. I love the old bugger. He's great.
A lot of my friends who are in the beginning of studying astrology are really talking not the same, but with a lot of respect about Saturn. And they are all saying, well, I think there is a key, but we don't know yet how to turn. Not always in our advantage. And probably we start to realize only after the age of 30 going forward, if we are lucky to catch a second. Yes, it's a long story. And for
Patricia, 40.
After 40, better said.
40.
Absolutely.
There's a time, look at it like this, 42, 43 years old. Uranus half return, Neptune quarter return, Pluto quarter return at this time of history, Saturn 1.5 returns. It's also halfway through your life. 42 is about halfway. So this to me is a really big changing point for people.
Absolutely, yes. And it's a big cake. It cannot be translated easy. But now I have a long text because I've got a question from a good friend who has a very complicated chart. And I don't know if it's logic what I will say here, but I will say my text and we will see if you can say something about or not. But this, for me, it was really a very interesting point of view. So, my friend told me like this. Let's us imagine that we are aware of all the upper and lower octaves of the manifestation of an archetype. Let's imagine that by accessing intuition, you connect at a subtle level, deep in these energies, and that you learn to master them, to live them at a Neptunian, utopian level in imagination. But to you, this may all seem extremely real. That is, you have already lived those experiences, he told me. If we managed to project ourselves at this level and live in detail through Neptune design, do you think we could access a kind of rewriting of some unfavorable aspects of the birth chart? Something like that, it was the question. I don't know if we can answer at such a complicated point of view.
Firstly, if I had access to all the different octaves of all the different planets, I would have wings on my back, and I'd be running this place. I'd be running the world. I'd be in charge.
Let me to still say something from what he told me. I have friends who completely reject the idea of being controlled by something outside of them, and they are born with a certain type of charts. And this friend is from this category, and that's why I was asking what I was asking.
A part of me totally agrees with them, because I ask myself, how can a planet like Pluto, 4 billion miles away, smaller than our moon, have such a strong effect upon us? But it does. I've got tens of thousands of statistics that prove this. But at the end of the day, one of the oldest principles of astrology, right up there with as above and so below, and the macrocosm reflects the microcosm, one of the oldest laws of all, the planets impel, they don't compel. Just because you have Uranus on your sun, Pluto opposite your moon, and it's your Saturn return, you can still go out and have fun and party and enjoy yourself, but you may not learn all the lessons you want to learn. You know, you don't need to live your life by astrology or any other form of belief, religion, theology, or dogma. You can do it totally on your own. You are an individual. These things are here to help us if we wish.
Absolutely. But have you found any keys to apply so far? If we can access through exercise, through training, this type of data rewriting. I understand we need to learn some special lessons, but maybe you have some.
You can. See, Another thing I disagree with that other person with is there is no such thing as a bad aspect. Right? There's no such thing. Even the really difficult aspects. I was dealing yesterday with a client who's become a friend who has the exact square of the moon to Pluto, exact, which is one of the most difficult aspects in astrology. It's a really challenging aspect, and it creates such a problem when they're young. But
I have an in conjunction between.
Yeah, well,
stressful.
We know this energy. So, but we've worked with it over the years, and they've turned it into a real gift, where they've become very forensic, they've become very psychologically trained. They're working with people who are dying, and they've owned their own psychic abilities, and they've become fantastic people at helping other people. So there's no such thing as a bad aspect. Given the choice, give me the difficult aspects, not the easy ones. Easy charts, people with not many squares or oppositions, they have easy lives, but they never become really happy. The more difficult a chart, the harder one's life is, but the more you struggle. And the more you struggle, the happier you become when you achieve.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm so happy that it's like you speak from inside of me. I can't explain to no one because all my friends, they know what I will say when I was just saying now. I have another question. Why has traditional astrology and its whole science system gained so much ground in these modern times when we talk about quantum physics and space research? For some of my friends, we are somehow...
This me. I see in England there's a big resurgence, especially amongst the young astrologers, the under 30s, who they reject Chiron and Uranus and Neptune and Pluto. They go, no, astrology only works out to Saturn because it's all we can see with a naked eye. And I'm thinking, okay, actually, no. I totally disagree with that. I understand why they think that, but my experience of working with the outer planet energies shows that they really do have an effect. And if you try and explain that effect using accepted scientific models, you cannot, which is why astronomers really dislike astrologers. And think of it like this: astronomy and astrology were the same thing until the invention of the telescope, right? But if you use quantum, if you start thinking about cause and effect, by observing something, you affect it. So once you start bringing quantum into the equation, the influences of the planets billions of miles away is a lot easier to understand. Using quantum, I can explain how planets like Uranus and Neptune and even Pluto have an effect upon us, even though they are minute and so far away. Because, well, to go back to basics, the microcosm reflects the macrocosm and vice versa, you know?
Thank you. Absolutely. I don't know why I'm saying always absolutely. I hate this word, but I continue to repeat this. Which orbs you are using for the main aspects in a chart?
I never, ever give anything more than 5 degrees, ever. Even a full moon or new moon, I never give it more than 5. And if it's 4 or 5 degrees, it's 20% strength. If it's 3 or 4 degrees, it's 25-30% strength. The orbs that are the strongest, the less than 1 degree aspects, these are the keys. The smaller the orbs, the less complicated the chart, the more you can see the big issues and the big gifts. When you have astrologers who use orbs of 9-10 degrees, the chart is just a mass of different lines and different colours, and it's like a spider's web. You can't see it. So keep the orbs small. I give a maximum of 5.
And do you work with asteroids? And if yes, which one?
Yes.
Tell me, please.
Right. About 30 years ago, the book Asteroid Goddesses was published by Demetra George, and in there she gave the ephemerises for 16 asteroids, 12 minor, 4 major. I started putting all the major asteroids in, and over a few years I got rid of all of them except one. because I didn't see their influences as being that strong. And then I looked at the astronomy and I realised that all of these asteroids, they're all shaped like potatoes. They're not round, except one. There is one asteroid that is round. It's big enough to be round, and that is Ceres.
Yes.
20 years ago, I could not do a horoscope without using Chiron. Now I cannot do a horoscope without using Ceres. It is so important, particularly in stuff around food allergies, nutrition, and digestion. And of course, Ceres in Roman is the Greek Demeter, and it's the asteroid of the mother. So it's vital in astrology. I also do use one or two of the smaller asteroids as like homeopathic lasers. Things like Lilith, the asteroid Lilith, not the esoteric, just the asteroid. I do not use esoteric planets. They do not exist. They're not in space. They are not lumps of rock. They are in people's imagination. But the asteroids are real. So I use Lilith, I use Psyche, I use Eros, I use Icarus. Because by naming a asteroid, once it gets its name, it starts having the attributes of that name. When you look back in your history and you see, how did Uranus get its name? How did Neptune? How did Pluto get its name? And once it's got its name, then the archetypes of that name start coming into society. Before Pluto was discovered, we didn't have psychology. Pluto was discovered, we have the discovery of plutonium, we have the use of psychology, we have the rise of the criminal underworld, all at the same time. So as planets are discovered, their archetypes come into the consciousness. And with the asteroids coming in now, at this time in history, I use Lilith, for example. Yes, it's about the anger of the feminine, but it's also about conflict resolution. Eros is what turns you on, whether it's food, music, love, chocolate. Icarus is where we fly too close to the sun. It's where we take risks. And all of these minor asteroids, they all have particular attributes, particular skills, but I only give them a maximum of 1 degree orb. Mm-hmm. All of them, okay. Except Ceres. Ceres, I give 5 degrees. Ceres is like a planet.
Why she became so important, and when? Something has happened, or how you...
What?
About Ceres.
What?
About Ceres.
About Ceres? Well, once the ephemeris was published and we could see this, the cycle of Ceres, the pattern, the 4-year orbit, we began to use it as astrologers. But then a few years ago, about 6 or 7 years ago, I think it was the Dawn probe went out to Ceres. And it was really exciting because the closer that we got to Ceres, the more we realised, A, it was round, and B, it had lights on it. It had these big white lights. And everyone was thinking, oh, what have we found? And the closer the probe got, the bigger the lights got. And we always thought, what's happening? What's happening? And nowadays, of course, we've got really good close-ups of Ceres, and we know what it is. It's salt that's reflecting the light of the sun. But at the time, we thought, "Well, this is interesting. Is it Elvis? Is it E.T.?" And it's not. It's salt. But so it grabbed us by the imagination, and that's never left us. Ceres is really important. I urge all astrologers to adopt the idea of using Ceres. It's vital with stuff around nurturing, food, mother.
Since I became a mother, I really discovered this way of not necessarily practicing astrology, because I'm just learning now. I'm in a deep process of learning. I discover in every month new aspects. But I resonate totally with what you just described, because I have Ceres conjunct in my chart with my sun. So I'm completely aware about what you just described. Mm-hmm.
Whenever I see Ceres conjunct or opposite the sun or the moon, I always end up saying to the individual, look, as you get older, the relationship you have with your mother gets better and better the further apart you live from each other.
Yes, it's true. This is another true aspect. Yes, totally agree. Oh my God, this is such a pleasure to really dialogue with you, and thank you again for your time, because yes, I know you moved a meeting for me, I hope, for us, not for me, for my public, because I'm nobody, for our community and the people who will listen us. An advice about your, not an advice, I would like to ask you about your school, because you have an online school, or is it possible to study with you online or not? Can you tell us a little about your classes?
In the years, I've done 2 beginners courses, 2 intermediate courses. I'm just about to start the first advanced course on not so much teaching people about astrology, but teaching people how to practice. And I'm starting it all again in September from scratch. And it's I do it all on Zoom, because Zoom and COVID happened at exactly the same time. Yeah, I've got about 200 students out there now, but I don't practice any particular type of astrology. It's just based on my studies, my experiences, my knowledge, because there are thousands of astrologers out there who are very good at teaching and writing books and lecturing and doing YouTube videos, but how many of them actually do readings?
Good question.
Very few.
Yes.
I have done 30,000 readings in my life. And I want people out there who can do readings, who can help others help themselves. Astrology can change the world.
All this information about your classes can be found on your site, right? Or where else?
Or they can email me. The email is easy. It's steve@stevejudd.co.
Put everything here on the text. And how do you see astrology on the next 20, 50 years? How do you feel about how it will develop? What do you think about?
I'm actually really excited. When you think that I got my first computer 25 years ago. I got my first email in 1999. I had a website in 2001. I was at the start of the internet revolution with astrology. And nowadays, when you look at the history of the things that people have looked for on Google over the last 25 years, astrology is number 2. Number 1, of course, is pornography. But number 2 is astrology.
We are humans. We have weaknesses.
And the astrology and the computer age are made for each other. You know, at the time that computers were happening, people were writing the first astrocartography programs. And I've been using astrocartography now for 25 years.
That was my next question about.
It's amazing. It works. If the time of birth is right, it works. And for those people who don't know their time of birth, it can be worked out.
So how to use, give us an advice how to use astrocartography in the most simple possible way.
It works like this. Using the astro mapping, the astrocartography, you work out where on the planet, at the moment you were born, the sun was on the midheaven. The sun was directly overhead. Okay? It's at its highest point in the sky. It's at its most visible. So, this is the career point, because it's on the midheaven. It's where you shine like the sun at midday. It's where the public image, the profile, the visibility, the status, the career, the goals, the ambitions, it's all there. So where that line is, that north-south line, anybody you work with from that line, any companies you deal with based on that line, any businesses you have with people on that line, your glass is automatically 70% full before you start. Another way of looking at this is you use astrocartography, work out using the mapping where the moon was rising or where the moon was setting at the moment of your birth. And wherever the moon was setting, you're always going to get on with people from those cities and countries much better than average, whether it is personal and intimate, or friend, or social, or professional, or family. But one-to-one situations will blossom. It gives a whole new dimension to understanding our position on planet Earth. It's an amazing tool, and it's only 25 years old. You know?
Yes, and I can say that I felt a huge difference after I moved from Romania in Germany, but I can't explain how, because a lot of information from astrocartography are totally new for me, and that's why I'm asking, because for sure from the people who are listening us, they are probably more advanced and they know and they understand better what you describe. So it would be good to search, to have, for example, on the MC Midheaven a sun, for example, to help us in the career, or how?
Exactly. And, you know, there's going to be people watching this now. There's going to be astronomers watching this going, how on earth can you say that that you can plan your best place in the world for relationships or residence or career by where the planets are in the sky? That's stupid. And I'm going to be going, that's your opinion.
No, it's not stupid. No.
I can prove that it works through statistics. And clients say, yes, this is right. I know it works. I don't need to prove it. I know it. But,
so it means we can control a little our destiny from this point of view.
Yeah. It's a way of moving our lives. And all the different ways of using it. Whether it's a study of the birth chart, a study of the astro mapping, a study of the transits and progressions in the chart, so giving us the best times to do things or not to do things. All of these things give us that little edge to make our lives better, more complete, and to create a better environment around us. And it's like the ripple effect. You spread it out into the world and the world becomes a better place.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God. This is so beautiful how you describe it. It looks everything so easy and simple, but it's not so easy and not so simple. You can. I've heard very often that people who want to have a better year and they know about the solar return, they are searching for places to spend the.
Yeah.
Is it working, these two, or here are different theories? There is a lot of debate. Some people are saying, if you move only for 1 week,
look, it works. I've got a problem with it. It works because people say to me, okay, my birthday's coming up. Where's the best place in the world for me to be? And I think, okay, well, let's work out the time of the solar return, the exact moment that the Earth has been round the Sun, 34 or 48 years, the exact moment of the solar return, and then let's find a place on planet where the Sun was rising at that moment in time. Okay, this is the place for you to go. And they go, thank you very much, here's some money, bye. And off they go, and sometimes they send me a postcard. And that's great. But the other way of looking at it is that, isn't this a waste of money? If they've got so much money that they can afford to just jump around the world to be where the sun is rising at the moment of their birth, yeah, nice idea. But actually, there's a lot of people out there who are hungry and homeless, and that money could be better used in helping it. So we should never use astrology as a game. It's not a game. It's not about the money. It's about using it as a tool for self-improvement and to improve everybody else's lives as well. So, yeah, I'll help people find the right place on the planet, but don't take it as a party game or a party trick, because otherwise I won't work with you.
How to develop the intuition, exactly connected with what I just feel that I feel you are very, very well connected on that field with the way how you feel the information. How to develop the intuition. This is a level of consciousness, and I think not all of us, we can quantify where we are.
The more you study astrology, the more you live astrology, the more you let astrology into your lives and let it work through you and with you, the more you feel that, I'm not going to say higher consciousness, but the more you can flow with the universe. The universe flows through you. You are working with it. And it's a lovely feeling. It's lovely. It's better than chocolate. It's better than sex. It's better than dancing. And if it's better than dancing, it's got to be good.
Absolutely. I cannot stop anymore from doing astrology. It doesn't matter if I'm doing only for myself. It's impossible to stop to do this. I can't describe to no one how I feel if I'm not doing, in comparing with the days when I'm doing this almost non-stop. Reading, talking about, sharing. It's beyond a hobby. It's not a hobby. It's a style of life. It's impossible to explain. It's alive. It's exactly what you said. It's completely alive.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And we meet again.
Yes, I'd love to. We can do this again in 3 months, 6 months, whatever,
I would like to invite my community to send questions for you, for just in case that I was not on the level of their expectations, and who knows.
I'm happy to do that anytime.
Thank you, and a lot of healthiness I wish you. And
my pleasure. Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed this too, and now I've got to go back to work.